Welcome to the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, host for this episode and member of the Black Doctoral Network. I am so excited today. I'm joined by Dr. Joe Johnson. He's a highly regarded international speaker on unleashing your purpose. He earned a PhD in counselor education. He is the author of Pursue Your Purpose, Not Your Dreams. He's the creator of the Strategic Goal Setting Mastermind session and the Heal Now movement. Welcome to Black Doctors Talk podcast, Dr. Johnson.
What's going on? Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. First, I would love for you to start by telling our viewers and our listeners a little about your background. Where does it all begin for you?
Well, I always tell folks I've had the luxury and I've been blessed to live in a lot of different places because my father was in the military. And then, like so many families in the military, divorces happen. And so I ended up in Milwaukee, where I was born, and I have a lot of family. And for a lot of folks who don't know, 53206, that zip code where I grew up, has the highest incarceration rate for Black males. So that's where it started for me. And I use sports to get me out of that environment. But I love where I'm from. And now I get to travel. I've been to several countries, but I get to travel and just do what I love. And that's speaking and helping individuals unleash their purpose.
I love it. Now, your first book is entitled Pursue Your Purpose, Not Your Dreams. Let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, why is finding your purpose important?
Well, it's interesting because, one of the things that I always share with people in my growth and understanding this word purpose, I always say that we don't find our purpose. We don't discover our purpose. Because if you understand the spiritual connection, if you believe in a higher power, there's something spiritual there. I believe it's already in you. So you unleash your purpose, right? And so I think when you begin to look at the way we've been taught, a lot of times you hear dream big and follow your dreams, and a lot of people do that, and they get to what they feel like they wanted in terms of their dream, and they realize it had nothing to do with their purpose. And even if you look at the research, it says about 52% of Americans hate what they do. Another study says about 71% are disengaged. So there's a disconnect when it comes to us fully tapping into who we're supposed to be in our purpose.
I love that. Unleash your purpose. I love it. So who has been a tremendous impact on you as a speaker?
I've watched several speakers, but I slowed that down because what I started to notice with other speakers is when they watched particular speakers too much, they started to mimic them, or they tried to be like them or sound like them. So I love to look at different speakers. I'm always listening to podcasts. I watch YouTube, but I don't think there's one individual person. I think I love what a lot of speakers do, different styles, the way they have their messages. But for me, it's all about making sure I'm staying true to who I am, being authentic, coming off the way that I'm supposed to come off, and not sounding or trying to be like anyone else. And so I love the fact that I get to watch folks, and I always feel like I'm a chameleon, but I'm authentic at the same time.
I love it. Thank you. So now what would you say is most challenging for individuals? You help them rediscover their true self. You help them unleash their purpose. In doing this work, what appears to be most challenging for them?
Well, I think what's been let me say this. I'm listening to myself, and there's these words, and I don't want to say I think, because from my experience, I've seen it, right? I watch it. And what I've seen with a lot of individuals, it's this belief, and they've been programmed to believe that they can only do certain things, right? Now, I might hurt some feelings when I say this, but I always tell folks, your purpose will take you places your parents can't take you. Your purpose will take you places your parents or your pastor can't take you. Your purpose will get you in rooms that you never thought you would be in. And I say that because it's a mindset that we must develop to say, you know what, society said this is what I could do. But in reality is there's so much more when you begin to understand who you are, and when you begin to realize that you are fully connected to I call it energy, right? Because when you think of energy, energy is a frequency, frequency is information. And right, when it comes to energy, you can put that out in the universe and radiate that and receive whatever it is that you want. Because we talk about the law of attraction, but you can't attract what you don't become. So we have to fully be what it is we want. And therefore, I say, if you understand the game you want to play in, you can receive and get anything that you want.
So, and I just want to keep there for just a second because you said something that was very, very impactful. That you can't attract something that you can't be. So, in that little space right there, why do you think it is so difficult? Because a lot of people are wandering around here not knowing what their purpose is yet, and haven't unleashed it. What is the barrier from, what is stopping them from tapping into what it is that they are here for?
Yeah, well, a lot of us we've bought into this idea that you graduate high school, you go to college, you graduate, and you'll get a good job. Come on now. You can look at studies right now. A lot of folks with these degrees aren't getting jobs. It's not out there. And so one of the things that we've fallen victim to is the fact that we've been borrowing other folks' goals. And what I mean by that is our parents or our guardians or whoever had power positions over us as we were growing up would say, this is what you should do. I think you're good at this, or this is where the money is going to be. And so what we do is we totally dismiss everything that our soul was telling us we should be doing, and we jump into what they tell us we should do. And then we get upset that we're unfulfilled, because you can have a great job or business, be productive, make money, but also be unfulfilled. And that's what's happening with a lot of people. So we have to let go of what everybody else wants us to do and have that discernment and be able to listen to what our soul was telling us. And when you're sitting at work, right, whatever it is you're doing right now, and your soul was saying, this ain't it, you got to figure out what is that about and begin to do some things that'll help you get out of that situation, because you don't want to live a life unfulfilled.
That is absolutely the truth. So now let's talk about self-identity, because you work in that space as well. It's the combination of things: personality traits, interests, hobbies, beliefs, values, just a combination of things. Why do people struggle with self-identity?
Well, so whenever I bring up this word identity, right, understanding who you are, it sounds like one of the easiest questions to answer, but it's really one of the hardest questions to answer when you think about it deeply. And have you ever met someone and they were operating in one way, and you're like, man, but then you got to know them and you realize, oh, that's just how they are, right? There's some deep embedded, right, traits about us, personalities about us, but there's so many other identities. Like you can talk about sexual identity, religion, all of these different intersecting identities. But when I think about identities, I think about, what is it that ain't going nowhere? It's in you, right? One thing about me, I love people. I love to smile, right? Part of me is loving to be around people. Part of me is just wanting to connect with people. That's in me. Some people, they're loners. They don't want that. So what it is about you that ain't going nowhere, and how can you operate from knowing those parts of you that are going to be there, have always been there, they're not leaving, and it's those core pieces of your identity. How can you operate from that space to begin to tap into your journey towards your purpose?
I love it. Thank you. So, goal setting, major component of personal development. We're always setting goals. So, I feel personally that goals should be aligned to what our beliefs and our core values are.
Mhm.
What are some goal setting best practices that you can share with our viewers?
Well, a lot of folks that are listening are probably on the journey to get the PhD, or maybe they have the PhD already, or they have some type of terminal degree. And so, one of the things that comes to mind for me is assessment, right? Whenever we're doing research, we have to assess, right? And so when it comes to, I would say quarterly, some of us would do this monthly. I would say assess your life, assess your energy, right? Assess your finances, assess your relationships, assess your sleep, assess these areas of your life that create a version of you that will help you go out and do whatever it is that you want to do. Because if you have certain areas that you assess that are extremely low, those are the areas that you want to focus on. Now, the other thing is this: once you figure out a baseline of where you are, and then you create a plan to say, hey, this is where I want to be, you have to be very specific, right? And so you say, okay, let's take weight, for example. I weigh 100 pounds, right? That's not me. This is just an example. I weigh 100 pounds. No, I'll use me. I weigh 195. If I wanted to get to 185 by the end of the month, I would say I am going to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, right? I will write that down. Now you got to get very specific. And you will say, I'm going to get up at this time on Monday. I will be at the gym by this time. These are the exercises I'm going to do. Right? You have to set yourself up to win. And what we do is we put these goals out here, and we halfway set intention and detail to how we're going to get there. And then after a while, people just fall off from reaching their goals. So be very intentional about how you're going to reach those goals.
Thank you. Now, how do you stay abreast of all of the current trends that are happening in your area of expertise?
Well, I just feed myself. What I mean by that is oftentimes when we talk about diet, you hear people talking about food, you hear talking about calories, what they're consuming. But the diet that I'm talking about is I'm making sure that I'm feeding myself podcasts with people that are in my industry. I'm making sure that I'm reading books. I'm making sure that I'm tapped into communities. And when I say communities, a coaching community or mentors, but I make sure to always feed myself with new information and around the energy of the people that are in my field, because it keeps me sharp.
Now, you mentioned mentors. How important is mentoring?
Well, mentoring is extremely important. And, because I'm an entrepreneur, we have to understand the distinction between a mentor and a coach, right? And oftentimes coming from the academic field, higher ed, we see a faculty member or someone that works in higher ed as a mentor, right? But sometimes you actually have to pay for coaching. And when you've operated from only having a mentor, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to do a business, sometimes you have to get a coach, because what a coach does, I was against it for a long time. Let me just say that. I was against getting a coach for a long time because I was so used to having a mentor who I could just call and go talk to. But what I realized once I got my coach, a coach can accelerate your success. A coach can help you see the blind spots that you can't see. A coach can get you further faster than you can ever, and I don't want to say with the mentor, but they can get you there faster than you ever thought you could. So we have to know the distinction. That does not say get rid of your mentor, but it's okay to have both.
Exactly. So, can you share more information about the Heal Now movement?
Yes. So I've had this 2020 was a year of healing, individual healing for me. And my family and I got an opportunity to be the premiere episode on Iyanla Fix My Life. I think it was October 31st of last year. And it was critical because so many of us are trying to figure out why we can't get to our next levels, why we can't finish our dissertation, or why can't we get this position in higher ed, or why can't we always asking ourselves this, why we don't have the relationship that we want. And part of it is you haven't done the necessary healing that you need to do, because remember I said your healing is directly connected to you getting on that journey towards your purpose, right? And it's connected to your profit. So for me, I realized that I had some work to do. I had some unpacking to do, because we're all recovering from our childhood. And once I began to release myself from that, I had a therapist I was seeing twice a week. I still see my therapist. But once I began to do those healing practices, whether it's a therapist, whether it's an energy coach, whether it's whatever you need, right? Whenever you feel that you're beginning to release some of those pains and some of those bad experiences and just releasing that trauma from your life, I'm telling you, you set yourself up for abundance, right? And you begin to get things that you've been asking for. But some of us, we get stuck because we haven't done the internal work that we need to do. So healing is critical, and Heal Now is for me to help people spark their healing process. And I'm here to just make sure you all can come along with my journey. But more importantly, I want you to start your journey towards your own individual healing.
Awesome. So you are a former standout college athlete. I love that. And you understand the importance of education and mentoring our youth. And we've talked about mentoring a little. Who do you credit as being that person younger before the entrepreneur space, but as a high school or college student? Who do you credit for that?
I don't know if I don't know if I mean, I would say my mother, but let me be very, very specific. It wasn't a person, it was an experience. My senior year in high school, I got an opportunity to go visit my uncle down in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was driving us in these neighborhoods, and I'm looking like, man, I know these ain't no black folks. And sure enough, these were black neighborhoods. So when I was in Atlanta, I saw a bunch of black professionals wearing suits. They had nice cars and they wasn't hustling, right? That's what I was used to. The people who had the nice cars. Like, I didn't see a lot of professional black folks. So it was the experience that really sparked my vision to say, okay, I can do more than what I'm seeing in my current neighborhood when I was in high school.
Love that. So, let's talk about we talk about successes a lot, but I truly believe that lessons comes in our failures, our shortfallings.
Yeah.
So what would you say are maybe your biggest failure that and something that you learned from that and was able to propel from that?
Well, the biggest failure for me, and I've shared this before, was the way that I was operating in my relationship with my partner. And what I mean by that is, when you haven't healed from your childhood, what happens is you bring in some of the things that you were using back then to navigate life into your partnership, right? And so my wife, so she's a psychologist, and I was still operating as though I was in survival mode like I was when I was younger. So my mother, she gave me skills to navigate, like be able to do it yourself. Don't depend on anybody, right? And that manifested into when I was older, I couldn't receive help. I couldn't receive the love that I needed. So I realized that I was still operating with a mindset of I'm in survival mode when I was actually in a place where somebody really wanted to help me. Somebody really wanted to see me do better. And until I got myself right and did that healing, because it wasn't until just this past year, man, once that I started that process, things started to flow and come together. And that doesn't mean I don't have issues still. We don't go through stuff still, but it brought us together. And with my sons, it brought us even closer as well.
Wow. Now, as an elementary school principal, I make an intentional effort to expose my scholars to colleges and universities and that whole space there. So I'm so interested in learning more about your second book, The College Kids. So can you please share a little more about that?
So when I was in graduate school, um, the one muscle that I learned to train in my body is the muscle to see the need, right? And whenever we talk about research and we talk about higher ed, K through 12, like what is the need, right? And I was doing a literacy program with some elementary students. And as I was in the library, I'm sitting there and elementary schools are always talking about going to college. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm in the library like, okay, you keep talking about college, but where are the materials to help them understand what college is? And so I was online trying to find books for that population. I was all in the libraries at different schools, and I couldn't find not one book that talked about college for elementary students to help them really understand what it is. And so what did I do? I just asked probably about 4 or 5 of those students who were in that literacy program. I said, what do y'all want to know? They started to tell me. And so what I did, I put it in a book. I made it in English and Spanish, and it's just very specific. I also realized that parents who don't know a lot about college, they learn from the book as well. And so I created that book because there was a need, but more importantly, I got it out here to the universe so that people, young kids in particular, and the parents who never went to college can fully understand how to get to college, what does college mean, dorms, where do you live, all that fun stuff. That's why I created it.
I love it. So, what skills would you say have really helped you reach your current level of success?
My ability to be coachable. I played ball a lot of my life, had an opportunity to go to the NFL that didn't work out, but I was always coachable no matter what, right? I was always able to hear and listen when people said, hey, maybe you should do it this way. And even if I fought it a little bit, I was listening and I would implement what they told me. But another thing is my social capital, right? Being able to build my social capital, right? My network, everything is about relationships, everything, right? So you got to be careful how you transition from a relationship, whether it's a career relationship, right? Whether you leave that job or whether it's a personal relationship, be careful how you leave that, because you never know how those individuals, it will come back in your life, right? But then also my cultural capital, being able to be versatile, being able to adapt. I can go sit in a corporate environment with a bunch of white old men and talk business, but I can go back to my old neighborhood, like, what's good, what's popping, right? So there's an ability to establish that cultural capital. And so cultural capital, social capital, and being coachable are so critical to me, along with building relationships.
And I love that. And I want to just stay with the being coachable, because that is truly so important, because you have, and perhaps you've even worked with individuals that it was difficult because they couldn't really accept, they know they needed the help, but probably just had a hard time receiving that help. How do you make a way, or make that a clear path for those individuals, because you really have to be on the receiving end for anyone to be able to help you? So how do you go through that?
Yeah, so part of it is that word accountability. And oftentimes, people use the word accountability, and then I try to connect it to accounts payable. If you're not accountable, right, you're gonna be mad looking at accounts payable. You feel what I'm saying? but that ability to see what we're doing as individuals to prevent, right, or to block our own success is critical, right? Because when you hear something over and over again, for example, if someone tells you over and over again that, hey, you always come in with a bad attitude. If you hear that over and over and over again, some people will say, that's you. But if you've heard it multiple times from multiple people, you might want to sit back and say, okay, I've heard it several times. Is that true? And it's going to sting, right? It's going to feel bad for a second. But if you can take that and receive that and really look past that and say, okay, am I doing that? And make the shift, because oftentimes there's minor shifts that will give you major impact, right? So make sure you're able to be accountable so that when you look at accounts receivable, you're okay.
I love that, right? I love it. I love it. That's awesome. So, you have, I'm sure, undoubtedly had so many proud moments in your career. But what would you say is the most proudest moment in your career?
uh I have two, and I'll start with the one superficial that has to do with my business. And one time I was speaking on stage, and I've had the luxury, I've spoken in front of top 500 Fortune 500 companies like Toyota, FedEx, the National Guard, places like University of Michigan, UCLA. So some, I've been in some big places, thousands of people and 5 people in the room. But I was on the stage one time, and I got off the stage, and this young man, he wasn't talking directly to me, but I can hear him. He was talking to somebody I knew, and he said, man, his energy was so massive. I thought he would be taller. So, I mean, I'm 5'9", 5'10". I'm average height, but I love the fact that he can feel my energy, right? And that's what it's about, right? You can go on stage all day, because there's a lot of people who can talk, but they can't speak. You got a lot of people putting keynote speakers on their resumes, but that's not what they do, right? Just because you get on the stage in front of a podium or with a mic, that don't make you a speaker. You got to be able to educate, inspire, entertain, right? Motivate all at one time. But the other piece is this past year, when I reconnected with my partner, right? And I saw the positive effects and impact of my individual healing and my ability to grow with my partner, that was major for me. And a lot of people are complaining about 2020 and what's been going on, and rightfully so with some of the things that's been happening. But I've been telling folks, 2020 was a year of abundance for me. Like I reconnected with the family, got a lot of financial opportunities, and everything isn't about money because I'm very purposeful. But when you heal and you tap into your purpose, that stuff comes, right? Because I started to become, and I'm always becoming, but I started to be what I wanted, then I started to attract and receive, right? So for me, reconnecting with her and reconnecting with my true self was most important.
So, I hear that personal connection and how it affect the professional piece, the entrepreneurial piece. Talk a little bit about that, because a lot of your responses, it has connected those two things. And undoubtedly, if you know when things are going right personally, then yes, they probably will, things will happen for you professionally. But talk a little bit about that, because you've really made those connections through your responses.
Yeah, a lot of times, we like to separate the two, right? But I could probably guarantee that whoever's watching this, somebody that's at work complaining about how much they don't like what they're doing in terms of their job, but they may also be complaining about how bad it is in their relationship that they have, or the struggle at home, the chaos that's going on at home, right? There's a direct connection, right? Because we spend most of our time, most of us, if you work 9 to 5 or whatever hours you work, we spend most of our time there. So if you're struggling there, right, it's going to bleed into your personal life, and vice versa. If you're struggling in your personal life, you're not going to be able to be as productive or impactful in your professional life. So those two are not separate. And we have to know that we have to get we have to dive here first, right? It's all about making sure you have your mindset, your heart set, and your soul set aligned, so that when you go out to do whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's getting that relationship or getting that job or creating that business, writing that book, you understand that it will come when you have all of those together. It's not separate. It's
Not
all.
separate. I love that. Somebody needed to hear that, Dr. Joe. So what's next for Dr. Joe Johnson?
Look, I'm always creative. I'm always doing some things. Like I said earlier, my family and I, we got an opportunity to be on Iyanla Fix My Life, and I think it's like the most watched Iyanla Van Zant show right now. You go on YouTube right now, it's like over 3.5 million views. But I'm very interested in taking what I love to do, and that's connecting with people, getting my message out to people. I'm very interested in creating shows. So I've had a few meetings with BET. I've been able to pitch a few shows, but I'm actually trying to take, because there's this idea of what someone with a PhD is supposed to do, and your boy don't rock like that, right? I know how to take what I do with a PhD, because I haven't mentioned I'm also a faculty member at a university, right? I teach still, right? But I'm trying to make sure that you define what it is once you get the PhD or whatever degree. Get creative. It's because we're only taught how to do almost one thing with the PhD and with our degrees. Stay creative. Use your strengths. So for me, I'm tapping into television. I'm tapping into podcasts. And I'm tapping into just impacting more lives. That's what it's all about. It's not about fame, right? It's not about a whole lot of money. It's about impact. And if the fame and some nice homes or cars come with that, cool. But I don't focus on that. I focus on impact, right? Purpose. And from there, everything else will be okay.
I love that. And you again touched on something that's very crucial when we get these doctorates. You are sort of mainstreamed into one area, but there are so many different ways that you can utilize everything that you've learned once you earn that degree. And that's I just so appreciate you saying that, because we are conditioned, I would say, for one way. And so I want you to talk a little bit, just a little more about the creativity that individuals can have once you earn these degrees.
Yeah, when people ask me, they say, well, why did you get a PhD? I say, well, I always knew that I would do work in the education space. I knew that I would do work in higher ed. I would do work in corporate America. I knew that I would do work in all the areas that I worked in. And, I always tell them that a PhD for me is just a tool. Just because you get the degree, that don't make you have the best life ever. You have to know how to use the tools that you have, right? So you had tools before you got the PhD. And so what we have to understand is, what tools do we have? And once you learn the tools that you have, right? And a PhD is part of that bag of tools. Once you learn the tools that you have, now you have to understand and go deeper with this language and this dialogue of positioning yourself for opportunities, right? Because we always hear that message of, you got to position yourself, and that is true. But I have to share this with you, because you have to position yourself first to deserve. Because if you position yourself for an opportunity and you get it, but you don't deserve it, you won't keep it long. So position yourself first to deserve, right? And then you'll be positioning yourself to have, so that you can keep it. And that has to do with your mindset, your heart set, and your soul set, and being fully aligned with your purpose.
I love it. So, how has your affiliation with the Black Doctoral Network enhanced you professionally?
Well, it's about connections, right? It's about staying connected. It's about seeing what folks are doing in terms of their research, or seeing what folks are doing in terms of creating businesses, or just how they're being creative with their knowledge. Because I don't go into meeting somebody just to say, okay, you got a PhD in engineering. Show me how to build this, or how to, no, no, no. Tell me about you. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies, right? Get to know people, because I am very I'm genuine, right? I don't want to create false relationships. Like, if I don't feel like it's authentic or genuine, I'll step back. But for me, I'm about getting to know you, because I want to help you. Because some people go in with a transactional type of mindset, like, what can you do for me? No, 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 that's not how I operate. I'm trying to figure out, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Maybe there'll be an opportunity there for me as well, but I'm always looking to connect folks. So for me, it's all about connecting and establishing a wider network.
I love it. Well, Dr. Johnson, it has been an absolute pleasure for you joining us today. Please tell our viewers and our listeners where they can go to learn more about you and the work that you do.
Absolutely. So make sure you all go to healnow2021.com. Healnow2021.com, because I truly want you to hop on this journey towards healing with me, so I can spark your healing. But the other part is, I'm always on Instagram at Joe Johnson Speaks, at Joe Johnson Speaks. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Joe Johnson. But at the end of the day, I tell people we do two things in life. We either evolve or evaporate. Pursue your purpose, not your dreams.
I love it. Please be sure to stay connected to the Black Doctoral Network and connect with us on all of our social media channels. Thank you for joining us today for the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, and we hope you will join us again next time. But for now, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend.